Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and welcome back to The Winning Drive. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by a fellow lifetime Longhorn young prodigy, C.J. Vogel. Coach is going to join us a little bit later on the show. Coach will be joining us later on. Of course, thank you guys for joining us. You guys know how it works. You guys can drive the show any direction you want to. Super Chat jump to the front of the line. You can interrupt the show at any time. We'll try to address as many questions or comments as we can. Of course, I know a lot of you out there want to talk. Hey, what's up, CB? A lot of you out there want to talk Texas basketball, and a lot of the reports are that Texas will be moving on from Rodney Terry after the Longhorns lost to Xavier. I picked the Longhorns and actually thought at one point I was feeling real good about that prediction, CJ. And then the Longhorn men turned out to be they are who we thought they were.
Yep.
Is basically what it came down to in the end. They are like when they were up. Man, what was the biggest lead for them? What was it? 14. What was it? It was a pretty big lead at one point for him.
They got up there. Yeah, it was certainly double digits.
Yeah, and I thought, okay, comfortably. All right, I told you, I picked Texas, thought they would come to play. And for a while, they were playing their best basketball. But in clutch time, they totally eroded and disintegrated in clutch time, pretty much. And that's what happened. Oh, I think CJ might be having some technical difficulties, maybe. All right. Okay, so we'll talk Texas basketball, of course. You guys throw it out there. Whatever you guys want to throw out there, we're ready to address it. Of course, I got a couple of items that I want to get to. Pro Football Focus had a couple of stories that address some Longhorns coming out in the draft. We'll get into that. Also, the Longhorns welcoming a new member, reportedly, of the coaching staff. We don't know exactly what their role is going to be, but it was reported yesterday that Kerry Joseph will be joining the staff in some capacity. He was a former quarterback coach with the Chicago Bears, most recently coaching Caleb Williams. Before that, he was with Seattle, probably with Seattle for about 3 or 4 years, and worked his way up from being assistant wide receivers coach. And I think Pete Carroll actually liked him a little bit. And then he took the Chicago Bears job. But since the whole entire Chicago Bears staff has been replaced with a new head coach, he was looking for a home, and looks like, at least reportedly, he's going to call the University of Texas home. And we'll talk about what that means. And he's a former quarterback himself, kind of an interesting background. Played quarterback, then went on to play some other different positions in the league, or played quarterback in college, then went to the league. I think they put him at defensive back, and then he ended up going back to quarterback, actually, when he started playing in the Canadian League. So he's kind of a renaissance man in terms of football. So really interesting, Texas bringing him in. Texas, that entire coaching staff is going to look a whole lot different than it has looked recently. I mean, thinking about all the new additions they have on that staff now, in terms of either, guys who are new coaches, new position coaches, or guys who are going to be assistant position coaches in some way, and even the front office guys they brought in. A lot of changes on the 40 acres. So we'll talk about that too. I want to get coaches' thoughts about it. Also, there is an interesting story happening at Georgia again. I don't know. We got to talk about this a little bit too. It's crazy, CJ. It's wild. I can't believe it's still happening. It is crazy what's going on. That is a culture thing. Like, I'm not saying we have a toxic culture, but it's something going on where, like, driving irresponsibly and getting into whatever types of all traffic incidents seems to be a common theme at Georgia for the last 2 or 3 years, and they can't figure it out. Like, they can't. And Kirby Smart's a good coach. They're a championship program, so I'm not saying that this is something that's decaying or eroding the program, but it's just strange. Just strange that everybody keeps getting the same kind of trouble at Georgia.
One would think that it would just be an easy solution. Just like, hey, you do this, you're not playing football again. Or you do this and you're running until you can't run anymore. And you're going to continue to do that day after day after day.
It's wild.
There's just been no, consistent discipline about this. So I don't know. It's a story. It'll continue to happen.
Like I said, I don't. Yeah, we'll get into it later, but it's even hard to explain, hard to fathom that it could be this ongoing for this long. This is an issue with Georgia. Anyway, so we'll get to that coming up because I think that's college football. And I think you can kind of compare it to Texas because one of the things at Texas, you haven't had a lot of issues at Texas. That's one of the things about the Sark culture. Now, I'm not trying to jinx it. I'm not saying they haven't had any issues at all. Of course, you're going to have young people making bad decisions. I was a young person once and made a lot of bad decisions. Didn't always get caught up. Thank God social media didn't exist then. But, the guys seem to be making good decisions within the Sark culture for the most part, on and off the field. And I think that's something that they take a lot of pride in. He talked about the GPA and he's talked about, leadership is, basically how you go about every day, the decisions you make every day. And I think that also applies to not only what they do related to football, but away from the field. So seems like, right now, Texas culture is something. And I said this before, though, speaking of the Georgia thing, and we'll get into it. But Georgia's been on top for a while now. How many years are we talking about since Georgia's been a championship program, CJ? It went on 6 or 7?
6, 7. Yep.
And I said this about Kansas City. It happens to every championship. When you are on a dynastic run, and I'm not saying they're a dynasty, but dynastic, when you're winning multiple championships in a really short span, you can start to see the decay because they're on the mountaintop, and it's easy for us looking upon them to see like, oh man, look, that's not looking so good. That's not the way it used to be. Even with Kansas City, it was like, oh man, we saw it for Kansas City for the last 2 years. Like, man, that Kansas City just don't look like it used to look. And now it's like a lot of distractions with Kansas City, that kind of stuff. We saw it with the Patriots. We saw it with we even saw it with the Spurs. Like, it's just natural because it's human beings. And human beings are flawed, and over time, you start to see those flaws accumulate and add up. And I think with Georgia, you're starting to see it a little bit too. And guys, coaches leaving, right? It's a big part of it. You can't consistently. That's a struggle. Texas is started. We just talked about that. That's one of Sark's challenges. Hey, keep replacing coaches with good coaches. Nobody did it better than Nick Saban. That's why he stayed the GOAT for so long. I think there's just a lot of things you can look at with Georgia. And hopefully Texas will have to worry about those issues, is my point.
Yeah, no doubt about that. The one thing that gives me some optimism about that, Rod, is like I've kind of called them the 5 pillars at Texas, right? You look at Gutowski, you look at Banks, you look at Coach Flood, and obviously Torrey Becton remaining under Steve Sarkisian. Well, they're your 5, right? There's the stability that you look for in a program. So I'm all for it. And again, I know that position coaches come and go. It's never easy to see one leave, especially when you commit to a school and you don't have necessarily that relationship with the guy in your room. But look, you committed to play for that coordinator. You committed to play that head coach. I'm sure Coach Banks was involved, and obviously Coach Becton, what he's done in each offseason. That's a great start to building a consistent program to keep those values and standards and cultural identity high. Texas has done a great job of that so far.
Yep, totally agree. Okay, yesterday we saw the news that broke that Texas will reportedly be kind of adding a new member to the coaching staff in some role capacity. We're not sure. It's not been confirmed by Texas, but Matt Zenitz reported that Kerry Joseph would be joining the Texas staff in some way. One thing I love about his background, and it's a very weird one. You don't really see this. He played quarterback at McNeese State. And then when he got a chance to play professionally, they didn't think he had what it took to be quarterback, but he was athletic enough. Then he was a safety in the league for a few years, and then went back to playing quarterback in the CFL. So the NFL was like, nah, you can play DB, and then went back to playing quarterback in the CFL. And actually did it, I believe, pretty successfully because he played in the CFL for a while. I have a theory, and I call it the Belichickian theory. I was looking years ago for what set Bill Belichick apart, right? What made him such a good coach? I mean, he was such a great coach, the all-time greatest coach. Now, some would say it was Tom freaking Brady, but it was a combination of the two. And one of the things I found out that set him apart and was that his background. You can look at Bill Belichick has coached in all phases of the game, like coach. You got, offense, defense, and special teams. It's very rare. You don't see that in your background. Most coaches, they usually their expertise in one phase of the game. It's kind of naturally how it goes. And they spend Johnny Nansen actually is one of these guys too, where they spend their career just coaching in one phase and mastering it. And nothing wrong with that, by the way. But a few coaches actually end up going over to the other side for a season or two, or maybe for an extended period of time. But I do think it gives you a unique glimpse into that other phase of the game that you have to go up against, that you have to game plan against and strategize against. I mean, he played DB, so I would think that he has a lot of insight for a quarterback into how a DB thinks, what a DB is, what a DB's technique is, what it is revealing to the quarterback, like all of these different things. So I'd say I don't know if he's a good coach or not. I'm not saying that, but I do like those types of players who and coaches, I should say, who may have that unique glimpse and that unique knowledge of being able to see the other side of the ball. Because most coaches, they never even go to the other side of the ball or venture over there. They spend all their time on one side. Now, as a coach, he hasn't, but as a player, still uniquely, most players, they still stay on one side of the ball. Who the hell, Travis Hunter? Who the hell's doing that? Nobody does that anymore. That's old school, right? Usually you stay one side of the ball. Either you become a player and a coach your entire career. Think about that. Some coaches, they've been coaching their entire career and as a player, and it's been on offense for 40 years, 50 years. Like, that's amazing. It's great. But I think it is interesting when coaches get a chance to see the other side. And that's one of the unique things I like about at least his football knowledge.
It is weird because, Rod, you're taught as a wide receiver. You're taught as somebody that plays offense, right? A quarterback, wide receiver, tight ends, even specific alignments, coverages, techniques, what the footwork to do. That stems you to do something else. And, I can't help but think, the smartest coaches, the smartest football players, and how much film and understudy that they take before games, it just screams that you can learn something else by playing or just sitting in the room of a defensive back. And so to have knowledge on both ends, I mean, I can't name many quarterback coaches off the top of my head, Rod, that have even walked into a defensive back's room. I always think back to the story Ed Reed tells about Peyton Manning. And it's, for 16 weeks in a row, I played this single coverage one specific way. And I knew that that's exactly how Peyton Manning would be watching it in film. What's going on, Coach?
What's up, Coach?
He would watch me play this specific coverage from a 2-by-2 look. And then I messed it up one week on purpose, the week right before Peyton Manning. And I knew that when they got to this look, I would be able to play it again. Long story short, I'm sure I'm not getting all the details here correct, but they get in this situation, and Ed Reed just kind of plants a seed, and Peyton Manning's film watch from week 2 or week 3 come back to the week that they play, and he ends up picking them off on a play that probably based off of those keys he wasn't expecting. But you don't know that if you're not in the DB room, or you're not recognizing that as a quarterback if you're not watching that tape. So to be in both and find out little tricks, whatever, I would imagine would go a long way.
Oh, it's no doubt. Hey, Coach, how you doing, Coach? What's going on?
Hey, good. How you guys doing?
Doing great, Coach. Good to see you. We were just talking.
A question for you, Rod.
Go ahead, throw it out there.
Is Kerry Joseph kin to Terry Joseph?
I don't believe so, right, CJ? That's no kin there. They just
okay.
Yeah. No kin. I know it is weird. Yeah. Lose a Kerry Joseph and you get a Kerry Joseph.
Yeah. When I first heard that, I thought, hey, he's coming back.
He's coming back. Like, oh no, it's Kerry. Like Kerry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, Coach. I actually, we were just talking about his very unique background as a coach. As a player, he was a quarterback in college, and then when he went to the NFL, they didn't think, of course, he was a quarterback, so they moved him to DB for a couple of years. Then he went to Canada and went back to quarterback. So his background is very unique for a quarterback coach, which what he was with the Chicago Bears. And did you, as a coach, I always talk about how unique it was and how rare it is for a coach to coach in more than one phase. Most coaches, spend like their entire career just either on offense or coaching defense, or special teams for that matter, whatever it may be. Did you coach on both sides of the ball? Did you ever go to the other side of the ball and coach?
Yeah, in high school I did. Well, as a matter of fact, when I was with Mac Brown, I helped Oscar Giles with the defensive lineman.
Nice.
But I really feel like that I never played on the offensive line, never coached the offensive line. And then I got a job, and I was hired as a running backs coach, and then the guy that actually at Abilene Christian, and the head coach had been a former NFL line coach for Coach Allen back when he was the head coach of the Washington Redskins back in the day.
Oh yeah, the Hogs.
In fact, Bill Belichick was kind of a volunteer for them. He worked at a toll booth and worked on a tollway at night, and then would come in and help them. At least that's a story my head coach told me that in Christian. But we digress.
Wow.
Anyway, what I was going to say is, so after we, after I was there a few weeks, he was going to coach the offensive line. I was going to coach the running backs, and he said, "Hey, listen, I think you might make a good offensive line coach." And I said, "Coach, I've never even played offensive line, but I'm going to tell you what, I did it. I went and visited with as many people as I could. I went with the Dallas Cowboys when Tom Landry's last year at Thousand Oaks. Went out there with a week as a guest coach, and just sat in on all their line meetings, and just was with them the whole time. And it was a great experience. And I'm going to tell you what, I didn't know football until I thought I knew football, but I didn't until I became an offensive line coach. So hats off to guys like him who have run the gamut. It just makes you a better coach. It helps you understand a lot better, what the opponents are doing at certain times.
That is amazing. I love that too, because honestly, I feel the same way. I'd love to learn, because O-line, that's a whole nother world. Line play is a whole nother world than the skill play in football. They're basically, it's one from Mars and one from Venus. They speak.
That's right.
It is. Hey,
but I'm gonna tell you what, linemen are the funnest group to coach.
Yes, I agree with
the
that.
Funnest.
Yeah.
I mean, Casey Studdard. Can you imagine coaching him? How much fun would your meeting room be?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Send line in there with him. I mean, golly.
No, I'm with you, because I've talked ball. I've got obviously great teammates, and said and talked ball with O linemen and D linemen, and I realized, just like coach, damn, I don't know ball. I thought I knew ball, but I don't know ball really. I know my version of it, but I really don't know ball. So you got to know what everybody's doing, and I've kind of challenged myself to do that. But you're right, coach. I mean, that's why, like I said, some of my closest friends in the world, actually offensive guys, right? Chris Sims, Kyle Shanahan. And I can tell you right now, I've learned so many tricks of the trade just sitting there talking to them dudes, like literally talking to them about, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you don't realize, oh man, when offense does this, just so you know, 90% of the time it's gonna be this." I'm like, really? Like, oh yeah. And I mean, it just sitting there talking. So you're right, coach. I mean, I think that's something that you realize at one point, unless you have been inside the meeting rooms in a lot of different positions, nobody knows all ball.
Yeah,
it's hard to know all of it, man. It's hard. That's why Sark is bringing in all these coaches. It's hard to know all of it, man. It's hard.
Yeah.
All right, let's thank our friends over at Von Lane very quickly before we move on, and we'll get some of the questions here. Also got some topics, but if you're tired of the hassle of flying or driving to some of the major cities in Texas, Austin, Houston, Dallas, the DFW area, San Antonio. Well, next time you need to travel between those major Texas cities, trust me, folks, you need to reach out to Von Lane, vonlane.com. Von Lane, you arrive just minutes before departure at one of Von Lane's centrally located luxurious hotel partners. Settle into your spacious reclining seat with tons of leg room and personal space, and you'll enjoy complimentary snacks, drinks, Wi-Fi, and even meals on select departures, all while you sit back and relax and experience travel the way it should be. That's vonlane.com. I've actually used Von Lane to travel to Houston and the DFW area. It is first-class travel without all the hassle. That's what you'll love about Von Lane. And also, if you are planning a special trip, or maybe you're planning a guy's trip, or maybe it's a bachelor party, bachelorette party, football game, concert, special event, you can charter your own Von Lane coach for the ultimate group experience. Von Lane is first-class travel without the hassle. See for yourself. Visit vonlane.com. That's VONLANE.com, and use the promo code OTF25 for $20 off your first trip. That's vonlane.com. And we appreciate Von Lane for being a sponsor of On Texas Football and sponsoring the Winning Drive. Real quick, Naaman Roberts says, CJ and Rod, if we're being honest, it doesn't matter who Sark brings in if he doesn't if he doesn't listen and run the ball at the goal line and not pitch it backwards. Thank you very much, David Roberts. Yeah, listen, Sark understands, that. Listen, I'll say this for Sark and the pitch, since we're talking about that specific play. Sark has the entire season was concerned about Texas short yardage effectiveness as a team that could be in those power situations, be able to just run it down team's throat. Guys, think about all the creativity we saw. I didn't complain about it. I just talked about it all season long. When you had to get like 3rd and short, 4th and short, we saw a snap between the legs. We saw a reverse against Georgia in that situation. You saw another one against Arizona State, a reverse against them in that situation. Instead of just deciding, oh, hell no, we're just going to run it right down your throat with our big humans. I don't think Sark had a ton of confidence that they could do that. And he tried to do it, and it didn't work, which probably, once again, reinforced him. I knew we couldn't do that. We can't do it. We ain't going. And so I don't think he ever had faith that his team could do that. Now, you can say, hey, that's your job to coach and all that. But based on my observation, I don't think he had a lot of faith in Texas being able to convert those situations a lot. And that's as part of the Arch Manning package, right? It's like, no, I'm going to bring in Arch Manning during that situation. He never had a lot of confidence in a straight up traditional, let's just run downhill on them and play bully ball. I don't think he believed that they could do that. And I got to believe that he's right if Sark's been observed. He knows the team better than I do. And if Sark don't have faith in him, coach, in those situations, and he decides to rely on creativity and innovation and special boutique packages, I think he's doing it out of necessity. But maybe I'm wrong here. Am I off in my assessment?
I don't think so. Look, I mean, again, I think he might be a little scarred, Rod, and I hate to bring it up even more, but 2023 Oklahoma, you had 4 chances at the goal line, and you couldn't pick up 3 feet, right? You went jumbo. Let's go do a quick screen and try and just squeak it in there. And they were stalwart 3 times in a row. Like there was nowhere for them to go. And I think after that first down against Ohio State, where Texas went jumbo, and they didn't pick up even an inch, it's like, okay, let's try it again with this speed. Well, the issue is you were playing the 2 fastest, downhill alley cat safeties in the entire country, and that's that. But we'll see what this new group of offensive linemen, if there's a increase of Jarrett Gibson or James Simon, maybe what the health of a CJ Baxter might look like, and what an Arch Manning might look like in these short yardages, because it's been plaguing Texas for too long now.
Yep, that's just my opinion, but I'm not dismissing or excusing the fact that you should be able to just run it and get a yard and get, and be able to convert short yardage situations like that. I'm just saying, I don't think Sark all season long, he displayed to me that he didn't really have faith for them to be able to do that in a traditional situation. And that's why, you had the certain packages you did. And then the last 2 downs, I mean, Jim Knowles called 2 plays defensively that he admitted that he hadn't called all season long. So it wasn't on film, no way for Quinn to prepare for it. And Quinn looked exactly like, what the is this? He didn't recognize it from the film and the preparation. That's just great coaching. And then we heard Sark, a week or so ago, say, what does he learn? What does he have to do in playoff situations? Break tendency in big games. Why? Because everything's out of the bag at that point. Like the bag's empty.
Right.
You got to do something new, and that's exactly what Jim Knowles did. He's like, I got nothing else. And if Jim Knowles didn't do that, who knows? Texas may end up scoring a touchdown. So I think Sark's he's working on it. It ain't it's not perfect yet, but it's frustrating to be inside the 10-yard line back-to-back years and not be able to punch through with a chance to go to the national title in a nutshell. So, but that reflects on what was the team bad at? Red zone offense and short yardage situations. They both came back to haunt you. So Sark knows what he's got to fix. I mean, there's no doubt about that. All right, I want to ask you guys about a couple of topics here. Number one, this Matthew Golden. I got to ask you because Matthew Golden's stock. I heard that he visited with the Texans recently, which that would be a great spot for him if he ends up going. And Texans like this, they like drafting guys who are from the Houston area, which he is. And I saw Steve Smith, who puts out like his ranking of wide receivers, the great wide receiver Steve Smith, and he's got Matthew Golden as his top guy, ahead of Ted McMillan. He's got him as his top wide receiver. And Travis Hunter is aside from Travis Hunter. Let's take him out of the equation, all right? Because he's just an athlete. So true receiver, all right? He's got to make his first true receiver because Travis Hunter will be drafted before all these guys. And he's got Matthew Golden there. Can I ask you a question? Who is the Matthew Golden NFL comp?
Oh,
because he is unique in some ways. And I was kind of looking at it.
What was the receiver's name from Kansas State?
Tyler Lockett.
Still in the league?
Lockett is still there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why, but something about Lockett reminds me.
I like that a lot, Coach. And I don't think Tyler Lockett had 4.3 speed. Maybe I'm wrong there.
No.
I know that Golden has 4.29, and I don't want to take anything away, but I can go back to a number of instances where it didn't feel like 4.29 was on the field.
Yeah.
But what I can talk about is the hands, the body control, his ability to separate at the point of the catch, right? That's all stuff that Tyler Lockett did very well. Now, I think that there might be a little bit more wiggle at the pro game in terms of the after the catch, right? Tyler Lockett's pretty infamous for just catching the ball and possession catching, right? For those that played the Madden game, he just went straight down saying, I'm preserving my body. I'm not trying to take a hit. I'll take what I got on the catch. Might be a little bit more for Matthew Golden in that instance, but I like that comparison a lot, Coach. I think that there's something to a Tyler Lockett, Matthew Golden level, same level there.
Yeah, the scouts right now, and you just said it, CJ, the one thing that they're having trouble, I guess, connecting is the time speed, which is 4.29, which is top 11 fastest, top 12 fastest times, I believe, for a wide receiver in combine history. And the film is fantastic, but it does not necessarily say 4.29. So it doesn't necessarily always, because I don't think a lot of people thought he would run that fast. So that's one thing they're like, yeah, that's necessarily the tape doesn't track with the time speed. He seems like a different receiver than that type of speed receiver. He's more of a precision route runner. Right. The belief to me is that maybe in the league you can teach him how to use that speed to separate instead of the precision route running, and then good Lord Almighty, you might be dealing with something otherworldly. Because I'm with you. I watched him and I didn't expect a 4.29. I expected a 4.3, low, high 4.3, mid 4.29 means he can go. I still think there's a real good chance that he goes to the league, and maybe we hadn't potentially seen the best of Matthew Golden. That's one thing. So, which one of these guys being drafted is going to be better in the league than they are at Texas? Give me that.
I would have to imagine Isaiah Bond. I have to imagine it's Isaiah Bond. Because, again, let's not forget, we talk about speed. I know he came out and predicted a 4.2 flat, a 4.1, whatever. Let's throw that all away. He ended up having the top top-end speed, the fastest top-end speed of any wide receiver in the entire combine. It was the second fastest of any player in the combine, right? So he hit 21 miles per hour in a tenth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's pretty darn fast, just running 40 yards. Now, obviously, you got to work on your starts, and I think there's a little bit of that in terms of his off-the-line ability to create separation there. But he was basically, I don't want to call him a non-factor, but he was incredibly limited the second half of the season because of that ankle injury he suffered against Oklahoma. You saw what he was able to do in those first 5 games or so, right? He was averaging right around 73, 75 yards per game through the air. The one play that really sticks out is a little catch and go on the screen pass from Arch Manning against UTSA where, you give him the ball in his hands, he hits the corner, and no one's touching him. Mm-hmm. I have to imagine some team's going to take him. He's going to be a heck of a second option to start his career. I don't know if he'll ever truly emerge as a true number one, but his pro career will certainly be better than what Texas was able to get out of him because of that ankle injury.
That's good. Coach, you got one. I like the Isaiah Bond one is good, though. DJ Dog says Cameron Williams, the more he plays, the better he'll get. That's a good one.
That's a great one.
That's a great one. Yeah,
that is a great one. Yeah.
I like that.
I don't know. But I don't know. I hope it's Quinn Ewers.
Mm.
I hope it, but I don't know. He's going to have to certainly get better at the deep ball, but he can thread the needle and put the ball in some, in some. I just don't have a good feel. Do y'all? I mean, I don't know exactly how he's going to fit in, the NFL. I don't know.
It's got to go to the right place. It's got to be the perfect fit for him. You're right about. I feel like that's the thing with him, and I do think that now the Jackson Dart stock seems to be firmly in the first round. For those teams who are looking to draft a quarterback after the first round, there are a lot of teams who figure, no, I'm going to draft a quarterback. I'm just not going to draft them in the first round. I'm not speaking that draft stock. Then I think Quinn Ewers is at the top of that list right now, with Jackson Dart now considered a first round guy. And, and this is interesting because you guys brought up, I asked both of you guys, who do you think or maybe hope's going to have a better NFL career than they did at Texas? CJ, you brought up Isaiah Bond. Coach, you brought up Quinn Ewers. Pro Football Focus did they had an article. I don't know if CJ, Matthew, if you can find this. CJ, the article, I believe the title of it was Draft Prospects Who Underperformed This Past Season.
Mm.
The first 2 were Quinn Ewers and Isaiah Bond. I BS you.
No way.
I swear, Matthew, if you can find, I swear that they were the first 2 that they were like, because in a sense, there was a lot of hype about Quinn, being a boom. It really was. It was like the 2 draft prospects who underperformed. And Isaiah Bond, I mean, coming in, guys, Isaiah Bond, there was a lot of hype on Isaiah Bond coming in, essentially being basically replacing Xavier Worthy as number 1. I believe I predicted he was going to be your number 1 wide receiver. I believe that was my prediction. He would be your top wide receiver. Not the case. The strange thing about it, can we discuss this real quick? And we'll get back to this conversation. And thank you there, Matthew. The Texas had these really elite speed receivers. Right? I'm talking about just with world-class speed. You've had Xavier Worthy. You've had Isaiah Bond. Neither one of them, and maybe this is all on Quinn, neither one of them really were deep threats our effective, consistent deep threats for you. You just brought up Isaiah Bond. I went and looked at his depth numbers. He was 2 of 14 on passes, 20 yards or more on deep passes. But on passes behind the line of scrimmage, he was more of your extension of your running game. As you pointed out, on the screen passes, he was 10 of 10 basically on screen passes behind the line of scrimmage. Had 3 touchdowns, averaged 12 yards a reception on those catches, and averaged almost 16 yards after the catch on passes behind the line of scrimmage. He was a freak. You know what I'm saying? He had 5 first downs and 3 touchdowns on passes behind. It was an extension of the running. Like you said, CJ, it was just dump it off to him. And if he had his acceleration, you just brought it up, right? He had the fastest acceleration for any receiver at the combine, even faster than Matthew Golden, faster than I think it was the second fastest period behind Maxwell Hairston, the corner from Kentucky. And it was fast. It was the fastest acceleration of all the max speed of all the wide receivers. And it makes sense because when you just dumped it off to him, he hit that max speed like that. 0 to 60, boom, gone. All he needs is a small window, coach. Daylight gone like that. But because of you just brought, and what you said, coach, what you say? He's got to improve the deep ball. Because of his maybe inadequacy in the deep ball, neither Bond or Xavier Worthy could really showcase that ability. Now, I'll say this about Xavier Worthy. He didn't do it much at the NFL level either because I think the reputation was, I'm not going to let the 4-2 guy get behind me. I mean, he's the fastest receiver in NFL history. I'm not going to let him get behind me. But at Texas, Texas couldn't connect on that deep ball either with Xavier Worthy. So it's been interesting that with your two fast, speedy receivers, there are more yak daddies than they were those deep threats that took the top off the defense every time.
Yeah.
You think why those guys that run 4.2, Rod, that's why most of them don't ever hit 1,000-yard seasons? It's because everybody just knows, hey, this is a guy I can't let beat me over the top.
Yeah. No, you're right about that because I go look at the fastest ones. I went and tracked it at one time, but there's only at the top, I believe 25 or 30 fastest times for wide receivers combined, only 1,000-yard receiver out of that group. So there is something, and also I think it's something too. And coach, you know receiver better than us. So I always say this, and I don't mean to be crass. I always say that being, speed to a wide receiver, speed doesn't make you a great wide receiver, right? Just like being well endowed doesn't make you a great lover. It helps. It helps, I'm sure, but there's a lot of other things that go into it. And the receiver's the same thing. So I think you got to have, it's about how nuanced the skill set is. And Matthew Golden's got that. The catch radius, aggressive at the catch point, precision route running, acceleration. Deceleration is a big part of it too. Or do you have good hands? All these different things. So yes, the speed matters, but I think ultimately the guys with all that speed, maybe they're over-reliant on it. And they don't necessarily cultivate the other parts of their skill set. To be able to win against a DB.
Yeah.
So,
well, if you think about it, coming out of high school, I promise you, when I had Jordan, that's what we did. He didn't have to run great routes because he would just run right past everybody, just throw it up. So but it wasn't until his ACL injury, he lost a step. He had to redefine himself as a receiver. And so yeah, it doesn't always add up. But I want to go back and say this about Quinn. I think you're right. In the right program, if he gets in the right system, and it's a little bit not fair comparing his senior year because we found out he had that torn oblique, and so it might have been, I don't know. I'm sure it probably stressing to throw a ball as far as you can was probably very uncomfortable, very painful. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I would sure love to see him just take off and have a great NFL career. It would be awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm with the coach. I hope he ends up in a Shanahan system. I think a Shanahan system of whatever iteration it is would probably be best for him in some way, shape, or fashion. But we'll see. And right now they say the third round is probably where he's going to go. And maybe can creep into the second round if a team really likes Quinn because he's got a lot of upside. I think the biggest issues for him are how he handles pressure, the deep balls coach brought up, injuries. Those are the three things kind of pushing his draft stock down. All right, Freelance Society's got a question. Thank you, Freelance Society's got a super chat. Thank you very much. He said the defense strength looks to be the front seven, speed, pass rush, and blitzing. Do you see opposing offenses going big formation bully ball? Ooh. Thank you, Freelance Society. Yeah, what do you do to counter what Texas is bringing to the table defensively? They got All-Americans at every level, right? You got All-American candidate safety. You got All-American linebacker Anthony Hill, Michael Taft. You got an All-American on the edge and Colin Simmons. Is it just – could it be that the interior D line, where the girth of your defense is, and you're built on speed, that you just decide to line up and see if you can push Texas around, see if you can bully them? Is that
my thought on that is very simple. If you're an air raid team or whatever, I mean, if you can't just decide I'm going to play bully ball, just bowl over people, again, that's not what they do. They didn't recruit linemen like that. So unless you have that type of offensive line and you have those type of backs, you specifically recruited them to be able to run the ball straight at people. I don't see people really, being able to do that. If they get into some crazy, formations and bring in, defensive linemen to lead block or something, well, yeah, you just load the box. But I don't think it's that easy because, again, the majority of the snaps these guys, they're backing up when the ball snapped, to pass protect.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to have to be. What I picture is when I read that, something like the old Nebraska. They would just bully ball you because they had the huge guys up front that were so dang strong and, run straight ahead backs, stuff like that.
Michigan a couple of years ago, Jim Harbaugh was.
Yeah, that's true.
They were, they wanted to line up fullbacks and, multiple tight ends. But you're right, Coach. For the most part, most teams aren't built like that. You got to have it in your DNA. I guess Georgia could do it if they wanted to line up and do it. They did it to Texas a little bit. That's a team on your schedule that if they wanted to do it, they could adjust to that, modify their approach. Is Arkansas kind of constructed like that? Would the way Sam Pittman wants to play football, could he do that?
The way that he wants to play football, that's absolutely right down his alley, right? He's a former offensive line coach. He says we're going to move bodies no matter who we got in the backfield. Yeah. To the point and to the question, do I see big formation bully ball? The one thing that Texas has done really well in terms of constructing their defensive line this offseason, and you can talk about production, talk about snaps, but Coach, production and snaps, doesn't matter how much of it you got if you're still 6'5", 330 pounds, right? That's still a tough boy to move. And right now, Cole Brevard, 6'4.5", 335 pounds. You look at Travis Shaw, 330 pounds at 6'5". Hero Canoes, 325 at 6'4", right? These are big bodies that they've added to the room. Now, just being big doesn't equate to being good. We've seen that before. But it all comes down to having that rock in the middle of the defensive line, just eat up guard, take on a double team, open it up for an Anthony Hill or Leon Lafau to scream downhill and make the play at the line of scrimmage. That's what I think Texas will see more of an identity toward versus a year ago where you had a little bit more disruption, right? A Jermaine Lele could get loose. Alfred Collins and his five-star pedigree, that athleticism, he could get loose and disruptive in the backfield. And I think Vernon Broughton was a better pass rusher than he was a run stuffer. So
yeah,
I think you're going to see a little bit more of a shift this year in 2025 towards, hey, if you're at the nose or if you're at the 3 tech, just eat up all you can because we got 4 really athletic linebackers ready to start scraping down the alleys and whatnot. I think that's going to be what you see. So I'm not overly concerned. And I should add Alex January in this as well because last year he, as a true freshman, was 325 pounds. So if that's another sign of what Texas will be deploying on that defensive line, I think they won't be moved around. You'll just see maybe a little bit less disruption amongst the bunch in terms of plays behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. And Texas is going to be a tough matchup defensively next year just because of what CJ brought up, because you're not asking a lot of your interior D-line. You just got to, just asking them to play a certain role. And the places that you should be able to exploit them, maybe at that corner spot opposite Malik Muhammad, maybe at one of the safety spots or something like that, maybe at a nickel. You may not have the time to do it with the pass rush, with Colin Simmons and those guys, Trey Moore, guys screaming off the edge. You may not have the time to be able to exploit those potential weaknesses. I do think, and I've been studying a little bit, my big concern. And it's not a big concern, but I do think one of your only ways you're going to be able to make plays against Texas next year, their defense, your quarterback's going to have to be able to move around and make plays, improvise when the play breaks down, scramble drill, stuff like that. And you play some quarterbacks that can do that, and that are going to be seasoned veterans in their systems. DJ Lagway, Diego Pavia, Taylor Green, John Mateer, actually, that Oklahoma quarterback, he can run a little bit. The one they brought from Washington State in that system. Marcel Reed, hell, Gunnar Stockton, who's going to take over at Georgia. He can run, as we saw last season. That is what I think may be something that can, I think, work against Texas or maybe be effective against Texas. But Texas defense is still going to be, I think, pretty good next year. I don't know if it'll be as good as it was last year, but I still think it's going to be pretty good. Mike D here with a question. He says, who do you think we should hire for the next men's basketball coach to lead them to the level of other Longhorn programs like football, volleyball, women's basketball, softball, swimming, and rowing, etc.? Whoever they're going to hire, I do think, CJ, is going to be a proven commodity. I don't know if it's kind of a splash hire, but a proven big name, somebody who's already a proven winner. Because I don't know if they can literally they can't afford, but in terms of the fans, Texas basketball fans, and their trust they have in the program, you don't want to go with somebody that's going to be, a potential failure again. Because you've had and not Chris Beard was different. It was for a different reason, but still, you've had a lot of swings and misses recently. You don't want.
It's not been pretty, and I see the question about Brad Stevens. He's not leaving for Texas, no matter the dollar amount there. But the point being to what you're saying, Rhett, you got to bring somebody that's exciting, somebody that I think leads by having a great offense, right? I don't know if anybody watched Creighton today, but look, if Texas got into this tournament as an 8 seed or a 9 seed, went in there and dropped 90, won by 20 points, okay, then you have some life again, regardless of who you play in the next round. If he's been to the tournament, I'm talking about, was it Sean McDermott over there at Creighton? He's been to the tournament 13 years, right? That's a guy that you can get excited for because your guys play hard. They look like they're not out there just wasting possessions, right? There's a motive behind every touch, behind every pass, behind every cut. And for those that watched the game last night, the final 4 minutes, it was Tremont Mark and it was Trey Johnson. Just one of them is touching the ball, and they're the only one touching the ball for that possession. The other 3 guys, you got one underneath the basket, and you got the other 2 in the corner, and that was your entire offense. Just dribble, 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 dribble. Shot clock goes down, huck something up from 3, and it evidently didn't go in, right? It was a bad offense. But who should they go get? Look, Sean Miller's name's been thrown around. We've heard that. I like Little Hurley over in Arizona. I think that's a good option as well.
Ooh, nice.
The problem is in basketball is interesting because you don't see those hefty buyouts often, right? Teams just don't have those funds to go pay for a big buyout in college basketball. But what's interesting is when you say go get somebody that's proven, well, there aren't many active coaches that have won a whole lot, right? You make it to the Final Four, you make it to Elite Eight, and that's really what you can hang your hat on and say that's going to carry me a long way in my career. It's going to be interesting because I look at proven coaches in college football and college basketball completely different. And I just don't see many available elite coaches per the standard that Texas has already that are going to be available this year. So I don't know. And hey, I'm not one to ever question Chris Del Conte, so I'll sit back and watch. But right now, I don't have anybody off the top of my head that's screaming. Rick Pitino was 62. I'd buy him the most Italian cowboy hat of all time and say, "Come on down, Coach. You're going to love Austin, Texas." But I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't, and we don't know a timeline on this thing, and there have been multiple different reports that Texas is moving on from Coach Terry, but we shall see what surfaces. All right, before we move on, let's thank another one of our sponsors, our friends over at South Point Dodge. Texas football fans, you can score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point with our friends over at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock right now, including a great selection of Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s. Whatever your truck needs, South Point Dodge is your one-stop shop. So score big today at South Point Dodge. And speaking of scoring big, right now is a great time for you to head on over to South Point Dodge. They have over 50 Ram 2500s. That's right, 50 of their Ram 2500s right now, all marked down with huge savings over at South Point Dodge. Now, you can go check out their inventory for yourself. Just go down I-35 in South Austin. You can't miss it. You can see their inventory there. It is fantastic. Also, you can make it easy on yourself. Go online and check out southpointdodge.com, and you can also see their inventory there as well. So no matter if you're looking for a trade-in or if you're looking to buy something new or used, South Point Dodge is Austin's automotive everything and your one-stop shop. That is southpointdodge.com. Really appreciate them for sponsoring the winning drive. We appreciate them for being part of the On Texas football family. I saw somebody earlier mention Makuba, Andrew Makuba, and following the draft, just kind of following the draft analysts out there. One of the names that keeps coming up, guys, is Andrew Makuba. Speaking of Pro Football Focus, they had an article about kind of mid to late round picks that are going to be. Thank you, DJ Dog. I appreciate that. Lots of scouts love Makuba and his range, ball skills, and football smarts. When I was looking at this article from Pro Football Focus, they had him described as if you need a coverage safety in the middle round of the draft, like he's the perfect coverage safety that you need. Because apparently, like once you get in the middle round draft, teams are looking for specific things because they need specific things on their roster. Hey, we're missing a pass rusher, or hey, we need a coverage slot nickel, something like that. And if you're looking for a coverage safety, that Makuba would be perfect. And the reason that he's a good, because we know he can cover. I mean, he can play nickel, he can play corner. But coach, the reason they like him as a coverage safety in the league, because he actually is undersized, is because even though he's undersized, he's not a liability in the run game. And I saw another article, I believe it was 33rd, which is it's a organization. They cover the NFL. They call it the 33rd. And they listed the hardest hitters they believe in the draft. I think it was Marcus Mosher. And he had Andrew Makuba as the hardest hitter in the draft coming out. Andrew Makuba. And that's, to me, that's a great kind of range of compliments. Right? You got Pro Football Focus saying, "Oh, best coverage safety in the middle round of the draft is Andrew Makuba," and then you got another publication saying, "Oh, he's probably the hardest hitter in the draft," and he's undersized. He's a small safety. He's kind of an old school mentality, coach. Guys like him, you ain't supposed to be trying to hit guys the way Makuba tries to hit people. And I'm going to say he actually does it pretty legally. Did he get? I don't think he got kicked out of the game or anything for one of those hits, right? Did he? I don't think
he had reviewed, but I don't think
he reviewed. I don't know if he ever
got
a
postseason.
Yeah, so coach, I always said Makuba, I think, is a guy's going to sign a second NFL contract. I'll just say that, and that's hard to do.
Yeah, it is a lot harder than people think it is.
Yeah.
I think that's a great analysis of him. I just people better not wait too long because somebody's going to see the versatility he brings and it's snag him, but he would be a steal mid-round, I think.
Oh, man.
Mid-rounds, no doubt.
Yeah, I feel like every team could use a Makuba. I may not need him, but a coverage safety that's physical, he can play on all your special teams you need him to because he's got that physical mindset as a safety. Oh, man. What the most underrated thing about Makuba, guys, and honestly, this kind of fits to today. I might get into this later on in much. The best thing about him to me are his eyes. The most underrated quality for any DB guy, I'll tell you right now, and Coach Akina is obsessed with it. Eyes. Your feet go where your eyes go. And a lot of DBs, they don't have great eyes. One thing about Jahdae Barron, he has great eyes. Fantastic eyes. Do you know that Jahdae Barron's got like 5 interceptions? 3 of them came off of like he was jumping somebody else's route?
Mm-hmm.
Realize that? Like, remember his first interception? He robbed the post. The second interception was, remember he robbed the it was the inside, kind of like an inside seam route, and he goes over the top to rob it. And then there was another one where he's taking, he's going to get interceptions from other guys, like other guys' coverage areas, because his eyes are so good. Because he's always looking at the quarterback and everything. That's what Makuba. You had in this secondary. This secondary might have had the best eyes and most disciplined eyes of any secondary that I can remember, probably since, man, maybe 08.
Ooh.
08. No, honestly, it was better than 08's eyes. Because it wasn't Shockey Brown in that secondary. Was Shockey Brown in 08 secondary? Was that him? Shockey Brown's eyes were terrible. He was always looking in the backfield, staring in the backfield. So it was better than 08's eyes as a group. I'm telling you. Really good eyes out of this group.
That was pretty good, huh?
Yeah, I think 05 might have had better. Maybe 05 had better eyes. Last secondary had eyes good.
When you have great eyes, I think you also, what comes with that is, I've never heard it described like that, like you're describing, but anticipation.
Yes.
It's the anticipation because of their eyes, where they can figure it out. And it happens so fast. They see it, they anticipate what's going to happen. And that's why I think he's robbing routes because he's anticipating it, and not many people threw his way, so he had to go make his own work.
That's true, but no, think about it, Coach. Now you brought up Makuba. He robbed them. Was that Georgia game? He went and robbed the post. Was that the Georgia game that he did it? He did it like 2 or 3 times where you'd see him basically with no work, and he would go to the other side of the formation to go find work, but always with disciplined eyes. Oh man, love those guys. Great eyes. CB says, I remember when Rod called Chris Boyd Shockey Boyd. Yeah. Well, because Chris Boyd at times had bad eyes. I'm like, what are you looking at? How did you not see that? One time, Malik Muhammad did it like once or twice this year too. He did it in that, matter of fact, Arizona State. Arizona State. It's like, what are you looking at? Like, you know you can cover that dude. You got the athleticism to cover it. The only reason that you're not on his upfield shoulder, your eyes. You staring at you watching the game like we watching the game. You supposed to be playing the game. What you watching? Coach Keith always say that. Are you watching that game or you playing that game? Play that game. Don't watch that game. So that's my Coach Keith impression. How about this one from Hookham from VA? He says, know this late, but my comfort golden, Donald Driver. Oh, that's good. That's interesting. Mine was Stephon Diggs, actually. Diggs. But the Donald Driver one that's not bad. I like coaches too. The Lockett one, I like that one. But that's good. Donald Driver's not bad. That's old school. That's not bad at all. I like that one, man. I did not even think about that one. Good job, from VA. Well done there. All right, got a couple of questions that we want to hit, and then we'll jump. I know we're close to the end of the show here, but I got a question here from Parlito. It says, even if Baxter is 100%, should Sark split carries between Wisner and Baxter? But the question is when is Baxter gonna be close to 100%? Like, what are we looking at here, guys? I mean, what do you think's a realistic timeline, Coach, on Baxter? You too, CJ. I mean, and when we can say, like, and Christian Clark too. Thank you for that, DJ. When they can be fully, weaponized in the offense, right? No restrictions. When is that? Is that mid-season?
I mean, everybody's different. Your body heals different, and then I think he could be healed, ready to go when the season starts. But I don't know if you ever had ACL surgery, but it's the mental part that being able to plant. Because if you're a running back, you have to make almost just abrupt. You got to plant that foot, and and I was a running back. I had ACL. I was a fullback, but I didn't do much cutting. I was just kind of a freight train straight ahead. But just trusting it, and I know Jordan going through that. Just trusting knee is not going to do what it did when it when you got hurt.
And
I don't.
Look, for Baxter, it was more than just the ACL. So, Coach, you talk about the mental side of things. Well, knowing that there were multiple other ligaments in that knee that were basically just torn to shreds, I mean, you almost had to do a completely different knee construction surgery for CJ Baxter. You're talking about the PCL, the MCL. There's a lot of CLs in there that weren't there after the cut or the hit that's occurred whenever this injury happened. So, for him specifically, when can you expect him to be back, Coach? I liked your kind of time frame of, I think physically he'll be ready to go at the start of the season, right? They're starting to ramp him up more and more in workouts right now. Still not yet cutting at full speed right now. That's part of the course of the recovery. But I think you're going to be looking at around June, maybe July in those summer conditionings where you're going to be close to about 90%. Now, again, to your point, that's different than being fully healthy and then being fully healthy with the mental side of things with the pads on. So I wouldn't necessarily count on him to be your number one back come week 1 against Ohio State. If he ever gets back to 100% healthy this season, look, I think you give him the ball. He's a heck of a running back. And Trey Wisner absolutely deserves some load in 2025. He just ran for 1,000 yards. So, there's got to be some sort of split there. And then, of course, how does Jarrett Gibson take a chunk of these yards, right? How does he get some touches as well? That's going to be what I watch for a lot in the spring because there's a lot of expectations riding on him taking that sophomore leap as well.
Yeah, I love what 817 Mr. Talk Too Much says here. I kind of agree. He said it's going to be Baby Rhino and Wisner with Simon sprinkled in, Baxter ready by OU. I almost feel like mid-season SEC play, maybe not start of it, but early on in SEC play, that will be the goal. Says we'd love to see Clark, but I wouldn't count on him till mid-season either. That's kind of how I feel. I don't think they want to take chances with a talent like CJ Baxter, and especially because, as CJ mentioned, you got multiple different ligaments to worry about. Clark may be a little bit different. In terms, like Coach says, everybody's different. With CJ Baxter, I feel like they're going to take their time because they had the luxury of it with Wisner. Now, if you didn't have Wisner, then you might be, a little anxious and maybe a little hasty in making those decisions. You got Wisner. I mean, you got a guy that ran for 1,000 yards. That guy, he definitely earned the trust of the coach. Remember, Sark couldn't trust any of he couldn't trust the running backs to hold on to the ball last year. Wisner was the only guy he could trust. So Wisner's his guy. Wisner's earned his trust with the coaches, not only through true meritocracy by earning it on special teams first and earning respect of the teammates and the coaches. But then when the fit hit the shan and none of the running backs hold on to the ball, Sark was like, man, I got to ride you. You gotta be a workhorse. And he was like, I got you. So I think Wisner, they trust right now. And not that I don't think you can reach the full capability or achieve the full capability of the run game with just Wisner. But he can carry it for you, enough of it for you, until those other guys can come in, and then you can start now working things that CJ Baxter's good at and that Clark is good at. But Baby Rhino's got to hold on to the ball too. That's his big issue right now is ball security. So this spring, man, he's got to have one of his goals this spring, Coach, should be no football on the ground whole spring long. And I know that's asking a lot because you're running back. That's tough, right? That's tough. So it's a lot of practices. But that should be his goal, right? Because that's what the coaches want to see from him right now. His running ability, we all know he can run the rock. That dude can run downhill. He can run rock. There's no question about that. Can he hold on to the rock? That's what he's got to prove, right, Coach? This spring, that's his number one goal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's it.
Easy. He gonna see the field if he can hold on to the rock. If he can hold on to the rock this spring, I guarantee you, Baby Rhino going to be getting his share of some of them carries early on in the season, like he was early on in the season last year. Remember, they loved him last year. He was getting run versus Michigan. Didn't he get the rock versus Michigan a few times? Man, I was like, okay, you playing this dude versus Michigan, you must really like him. Yep. But then he lost. He fell outside the circle of trust because he couldn't hold on to the rock. And that's a big part of it. A17 need you guys to earn their way into the circle of trust. Y'all gonna try to make that circle of trust thing. I think my man CV, I think I heard him mention that too. The circle of trust. I like that. All right.
Awesome.
The circle of trust. I like that. All right, let's somebody else we trust is our good friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. Let's give them a shout out for sponsoring the winning drive. Did you know the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard closest to Austin? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Flat Creek Estate Winery is just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award this year for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Super Texan is now available at your local spec, so you can give it a try. Also, I saw a display at our local Central Market, so really excited about friends at Flat Creek because the good word is getting out about their great wine. Of course, Flat Creek, not only does it produce some of the best wines out there, but it's also a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. It's perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. So check out flatcreekestate.com. Flat Creek Estate Winery. Also, we had a member of the Owen Texas football family get engaged at Flat Creek Estate Winery, so it can accommodate any of the occasions that you have, no matter how special those occasions may be. Go check out Flat Creek Estate Winery, and you can celebrate with them at flatcreekestate.com. All right, let's I got a couple of questions. I know we're getting close to the end of things here. I was looking at the offense last year and comparing it to the previous some of the prior offenses for Sark here at Texas. And I did recognize that he's got unique freaks at his disposal every year. And we learn about these unique freaks during the draft process, right? We didn't know Matthew Golden was a unique freak. Turns out he is. And the film backed it up, right? And the kind of season he had. One unique freak we're not appreciating enough was Jaden Blue. Jaden Blue was probably your toughest matchup last year. Like you would think it's Matthew Golden. It's actually not, because Matthew Golden is matched up against DBs who are the best cover guys on the team. Like that's a matchup that the matchup that nobody really wanted was Jaden Blue matched up on your linebacker. Or a safety having to come downhill from 7-8 yards away and try to tackle him on a swing route in the open field. Bad matchups. And he proved that it was even Ohio State. Ohio State and Georgia proved it was tough for them to match up with Jaden Blue. And before that, he had X-Man, was kind of one of those unique freaks too. And of course, Bijan, all right, the freakiest of freaks. Who was the unique freak on the offense this year? Who are the unique freaks? Because he's had them every year. And like I said, we see him. Isaiah Bond was supposed to be one of these unique freaks and really didn't even utilize him. He didn't reach his full capability or, expectation level within the offense. Who's the unique freak, coach, in the offense? Who is it? Who's your unique freak for Sark this year? Because he likes those guys.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know of one.
Yeah. That's why I agree. I don't know if there are. I don't know. I'm with you because I don't know if there are a ton. I'm asking because
we got some on defense, that's for sure.
But got some on defense. There you go.
Yeah.
Is it
agreed?
The two kind of came to mind. Arrow Kids 27 says Wingo. I don't say that's out of the picture. The first one that came to mind was Arch. I mean, just his playing athleticism. I mean, look, 75-yard run. Sign me up for some more of those. And then the other one, and we haven't seen him yet. Really, there was just that one catch in the spring that people were kind of oohing and on at. How about Jordan Washington? Is it crazy to say he might be the most athletic tight end Texas has had since Sark's arrived? Like, I know JT was great. I know Gunnar Helm had a historic season, but I think there's a level above with Jordan Washington. Now he's got to go do the job, but that athleticism coming from a basketball background, he put on 25 pounds last year. I kind of like what his ceiling will be, whether that's this year or next.
Yeah. I see some Michael Terry. Saw Bernard Torrance say Terry or Livingstone. Yeah, I'm sure it's somebody there. But I like what you said, CJ, about Arch. It's almost like we forget that Arch is kind of a freak physically, right? 20 miles per hour. He can run. No, I like that one. Jack Bird says, I hope it's an offensive lineman. That would be nice if it's a Gooseby. Gooseby did some freaky stuff last year by going, right tackle, left tackle. That's kind of freaky. Usually don't think about offensive linemen as one of those, but hell, man, Kelvin Banks should be in that category of unique freaks. And you had him starting as a freshman, so there's no doubt about that. But yeah, I think Wingo. I would throw Wingo in there too. I like the Wingo one, but the Arch one is good. CJ, that's good. That's that's a good one because if you use him the right way, I do think he can. I'm not saying he can solve all your problems, but I do think he can help address a lot of concern issues you had from last year. Red zone, help you with yardage. Not that he'll be running it, but you have to account for him as a +1, and that changes the math on the defensive side in a lot of ways. So good stuff there. All right, let's thank another one of our sponsors before we move on. We're getting close to the end of it. So we'll have one more question, and then we can end the show. But My Athlete 360, let's thank them before we move on. My Athlete 360, folks, and trust me, if you have a kid that's right now trying to showcase their ability, they're trying to get better, trying to master a skill, master a sport, cultivate their craft. This is where opportunity, innovation, and focus meet here at My Athlete 360. The future of youth sports is here, and early adopters are already winning. For coaches and trainers, My Athlete 360 is your gateway to growth for yourself and the organizations you represent. Showcase your expertise and connect directly with families actively seeking your skills, all without expensive marketing costs at all. For parents, we bring trusted athletic opportunities right to your fingertips with customizable filters for age, sport type, and budget that will match your child with the perfect coach or trainer. Whether you're a coach building a thriving business, a volunteer coach looking to bring new kids into your youth organization, or a parent seeking quality training, My Athlete 360 makes the connection simple and secure. Don't miss out on this platform, folks. It's revolutionizing youth sports development. Download My Athlete 360 today. Your competitive advantage awaits. That's My Athlete 360. Download that app. And trust me, it is a great place. Like I said, if you are a trainer or if you're a parent looking to help your child, help your young one cultivate their skill set in a unique sport, My Athlete 360 can help you with it. Or you can scan the QR code right there on your screen. Thank you very much to My Athlete 360 for being a part of the On Texas football family and sponsoring the winning drive. All right, we got one more question here from Ike. Says, I hope it doesn't have to come down to that, but if it does, who is the running back comp to Michael Terry? Oh yeah, we hope it doesn't, but last year, hell, you had running backs dropping like flies around there. So we hope it doesn't come down to it. But does he have a running back comp? Because isn't he starting at wide receiver, CJ, right now? What would you watch this young man? You saw him in person. What's his running back comp? Because he is a little tall, right?
Yeah, he's 6'2" and some change. He's a wide receiver for now. So until then, he's a wide receiver, right? We have to wait until he basically gets the green light to go get some work in Chad Scott's room. So interesting. He did run the ball in high school. There were a few teams that kind of toyed around with the idea of him being a running back as well. I'm not completely sold that there's going to be running back carries in his 2025 season. It's not to say it won't eventually happen, but we got to see it first. So what's his comp, though? Look, big body, can change direction very well. Great burst rod, as we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. It's tough to find those running backs at 6'2". 6'2", 15. I agree. I don't know.
That one is tough. I'm trying to think of taller running backs that I've seen. And I'll admit,
you don't see many of those.
No. It's a weird mix here, tall, slender running back at the next level. So, all right, good question. All right, we'll think about it and get back to you on that one. Thank you, Matthew, behind the scenes. Everybody said thanks to Matthew. He's a real MVP. We appreciate all of his hard work. Thank you, Coach, for the wisdom and the levity. Thank you, CJ, for all your great nuggets. And also, thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to our friends over at Flat Creek State Winery, flatcreekestate.com. Thank you to South Point Dodge and southpointdodge.com as well. Thank you to our friends over at My Athlete 360. Go download that app. And Bond Lane, bondlane.com. And remember, OTF25, you'll get that code and get $20 off your first trip with Bond Lane at bondlane.com. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for the super chats as well. Really appreciate you guys and your participation in the show. If we missed any question, missed any subject you want to get to, direct that to the guys at Coffee and Football tomorrow. Maybe that's 8:15. And we'll have our 1 o'clock live stream actually tomorrow Friday live stream. And if anything breaks in between that, keep it tuned here, right here to On Texas Football at ontexasfootball.com. And for Coach and for CJ and for Matthew, I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, Hook 'em horns.